And Marianne, thank you so much for showing us the way of the toilet paper entrepreneur. So I haven't read the book. I do know the book Profit First, but I haven't read this one, so I'm curious to hear all about it.
Oh, good, good. Well, I'm glad that you asked me to do it. It's been a lot of fun reading this book. I'm actually reading it with my BNI networking group, and I'm leading the book club for probably like 6 or 7 people. And it's really been interesting because actually one person in the group, in addition to her normal business, is actually looking to launch a product. And she has an idea. She's had it for the last 15 years. She's now actually gone to, with the impetus of being in this little book club, she finally has brought the idea to a lawyer to get a non-disclosure agreement. She's actually bringing it to a manufacturer to be able to talk to them and see if this project will actually come to fruition. So it's kind of fun to use her as our test case, that's really more the entrepreneurial part of it. You know, a lot of us talking today and the other people in my BNI networking group, we're already in business. So it doesn't, so it's a little bit different than if you're just starting off with a new idea. But anyway, I thought it was great. So, well, welcome everyone. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Marianne Slamm. I've been an agent at Keller Williams probably since 2013, 2014, I think it is.
The years just go by.
And last year when I was on the ALC, we read the book Profit First, which is another book by Mike Michalowicz. And it's probably in the order of books, it's probably the third one in the order. And this I believe is his first one. So I felt like I read it in a little bit different order. The other book is The Pumpkin Plan, which is another great one. And it's all about determining your business and coming up with your brand and your product and stuff like that. So that's another one, another easy read. And again, part of the reason why I'm reading these books and why I think that they're so relevant is that they really do dovetail nicely to Keller Williams and the ideas behind the one thing, behind the MREA, behind the shift book and stuff like that. You're going to see that there's lots of overlying ideas. And I think that's what struck a chord with me, is that it was nice to hear it from somebody else talking about similar things, and maybe just a little way to kind of refocus yourself on your business and refocus yourself on, what needs to get done given all the craziness that's happened and how our business is changing. So I was just going to, I do have a couple slides. So let me just hit share screen. I've never really done this before. Let's just see, share screen. There we go. Here we are. Okay. All right. So everyone who knows me knows that my favorite color is pink. So most of the slides have some sort of pink on them. So, but anyway, has anyone read The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur? I'm assuming most people have not read it. The book
No, I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it. So it's really funny. And so I was telling Maria that the guy is actually from Boonton. So he's a local New Jersey guy, and he does, totally expand upon this whole idea of toilet paper and everything else, and kind of relates it to this whole book. So there is a lot of potty humor, if you will. I mean, he really does, excuse my language, say shit or get off the pot and do a couple things like that. So it is a fun book to read. It's pretty easy. I actually read it. I listened to it on audio. The one thing that it's a little bit easier, I would think, if you read the book and actually read it, is at the end of each chapter, they have questions and little exercises for you to do. And it kind of asks you, it's a little bit harder when you're in the audio mode to be able to figure out what these questions are, because you have to take the time to write them down. But the book is basically broken up into maybe 4 sections. And the first half of the book is kind of examining yourself, if you will, and kind of thinking about your business and thinking about what you're doing. And the second half of the book is kind of more the business part of it. It's more finances and things like that. So I'm not going to necessarily get so far into the financing your business, because that to me was more entrepreneurial versus what we do here as a real estate agent. But it's an easy read, and I think that that part of the book is kind of dovetails nicely into his book called Profit First, which I think is a really important read for a lot of people. But anyway, the book is, like it says, Tell It Like It Is Guide to Cleaning Up in Business, even if you're at the end of your role. And if you'll, what do you call it? Indulge me, I will read a little bit of how the book starts off, because I think that it's funny, and I'm just going to read it the way he wrote it. I hope I don't offend anyone, but it's kind of funny. So it says here, have you ever been doing your business with your pants hugging your ankles, and when you're ready to wrap things up, notice that you're extremely low on toilet paper? Don't deny it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. 3 tattered sheets of TP hanging off the edge of a cardboard roll, mocking you. This is a crappy situation to be in, pun intended. There are 2 or 3 options. You could call for help, which is way too embarrassing, but an option. Of course, you could do the humbling, hunched shuffle of shame and pray you find a roll of toilet paper somewhere nearby. That's horrible, but that's also an option. And the final option, usually the best, is to manage with what you've got. And when you apply your entrepreneurial mind, you'll quickly recognize that you have more than just a mere 3 sheets. Now he goes on to discuss, how he scrounges through the garbage can, and he's looking around for different things to do. And it really is it's very funny as far as how he, figures out what you do in that situation. So I thought of it kind of in our situation as far as how we've been shifting with what's been going on as far as switching to virtual open houses and a bunch of different ways of virtual buyer consultations, seller consultations, and how we've needed to change things up. So a lot of it to me said, how do you respond in an emergency? How do you, how do you think on your feet? How do you change things up? Are you that kind of a person that can actually, just change things on a dime? And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to read this book. So anyway, his top attributes of what he considers a toilet paper entrepreneur, or a person that that he assimilates with, are the following. And it says, the toilet paper entrepreneur cultivates a powerful foundation of beliefs. And to me, and what it says in the book is very similar to what Keller Williams talks about as far as what are your values? What are your beliefs? What do you, where do you see your business going? What things do you do well at? What things don't you do well at? And I think he, expands upon that. Says the TP has a passion. And for anyone that knows Keller Williams, I think you really see that most people in our business do have a passion for what they're doing, and they're really excited about real estate and helping people. And I think it goes a long way in seeing that. His other comment is that the toilet paper entrepreneur slants toward premature action. And I think that given what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that's the same exact thing what we've seen for the very successful people. They, took what the situation was like and immediately started to, shift and change and decide, okay, how can I get these houses sold? What am I going to do to keep things moving along? And I think instead of waiting for things to happen, a toilet paper entrepreneur really gets up and does things and does it right away. The other thing that you can see is that he talks about that the toilet paper entrepreneur is great at extremely little. So he calls it the jack of all trades, master of none. And it's true that, we really are all not great at everything. And we need to learn that, do what you do really well and make it really work. The thing that number 5, ingenuity over money, I thought was very important. And I think it really dovetails nicely again with the shift book and looking at our expenses. And a lot of what he talks about is, I'd rather have you start your business without a lot of money, because I think you're a lot more frugal, and I think you figure out things better and you are able to be more successful, because if you have too much money to spend, it hides a lot of flaws and you probably are not going to make as much money, given the fact that you're spending too much money. And I think that given what we're doing with all the shift calls that I'm on and things like that, people are really looking at their expenses and really figuring out what's getting them the most bang for their buck. Number 6, they dominate a niche. And I think that it's really important his big idea is that you really stay focused and that you really define your customer base and figure out who you really want to work with, and really are very narrowly focused as opposed to being a very broad-based kind of thing. And I thought about this in terms of real estate and saying, you know what, we can't help everyone. I mean, we can't be in every single town. We can't be something to everyone. We can't be with investors, renters, luxury, first-time home buyers, downsizers. Like there might be too much on our plate, and maybe in the beginning, and maybe sometimes you need to almost say, what am I going to focus on, and really do really well at that, and then expand later on. The next two, they marry long-term focus with short-term action. And this to me resonated as far as a 411 and, knowing your numbers and really understanding what you need to do every day. How many phone calls do you need to make? How many people do you need to talk to? How many deals do you need to have? What's your overall goal, and how are you doing daily steps and quarterly steps to make it all work? And then the number 8, it says the TPE is not normal. And I guess it's just a different personality. It's someone that's a risk taker and willing to put themselves out there and just kind of, take a look and see what's going on. He gives an example of a guy, his name is Bill Scudamore. He's the guy that came up with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And basically it was his summer job, was collecting junk from people's houses. And he turned it into this billion-dollar industry. And it was all about, figuring out what his why was and figuring out how he's going to do it and coming up with a plan. And he turned it from a summer job to this huge, huge business. And I thought that's kind of what we see a lot of. Having gone to family reunion, I see a lot of very successful agents turning very small businesses into very large teams and expansion teams and things like that. So again, I feel like we can kind of really compare a real estate agent to the entrepreneur. So anyway, so the premise of the book, like I read, was the less you have of something critical, the more important it becomes and the more wisely you use it. And it's true with everything: love, food, money, toothpaste, and especially toilet paper. I think in this day and age, I think what we're all trying to do and learning what's going to be the new normal going forward is what are we doing in our business that's working, and what are we not doing that's not working. And I think you're holding every dollar accountable. There may be subscriptions that you're not using. Maybe there's sources of lead generation that are not working. Maybe there's things that you need to go back to the basics. And I thought that was kind of similar to what he's talking about. And I really think that that's important. And like I said, it's the whole idea of when things are in abundance, when you have that full roll of toilet paper to start off with, or that full tube of toothpaste to start off with, you're using it pretty, what do you call it? Judiciously, I guess that's not the right word. I guess you're using it to the full advantage. But when you get toward the end, you start to be a little bit more conscious of how much is being left. And in what we need to do is kind of treat it the same way all the time, that the toilet paper is scarce. You need to make it last much, much longer than what needs to. Anyway, so I would love it for people to be able to say, let's dig deep and kind of think a little bit about what are we doing, what are we not doing, and what resources do we have available to us that we might not have thought of beforehand. So, all right. So in the beginning of the book, he talks a lot about what's your heart's desire, like what makes you get up in the morning and what makes you really enjoy your job, what gets you totally juiced up, what makes you happy every day. And I think a lot of it, what he talked about was it's a tangible thing, and it's also a feeling. And I guess, and I'm going to use the example of, I listened to Vanessa Pollock the other day talk a little bit about her business and her passion for her, her philanthropy, where she donates for, clothing for a cause. And I feel like that's a little bit part of what this is talking about, that there's a feeling that you get that you're in business for, but there's also a dollar amount too. I mean, I know we're in here to make money, but I really feel like it should be about the reason we get up in the morning. Why are we doing real estate? What other pieces of our life are we doing that make it enjoyable? And, like I said, listening to Vanessa, and I think listening to a lot of other successful teams within Keller Williams, you see that they're not just selling real estate. They're selling their whole business and their whole philosophy of being there for their clients, whatever other ancillary services that they're providing. And I think that, to me, I've been trying to figure out what other part of my business, gets me excited. It's not just the real estate piece. It's got to be something more than that. And how do I connect those two? And, I'm on the board at the senior center. Like, do I do something with that? Is it something in my community with my vendors? Like, is it something with my networking group? How do I continue to make it a whole package? And I think that's one of the things that he talks about in the book. The other thing that he talks about as number 2 and number 3 here is to make a list of every excuse that you've used and write down what's preventing you from getting to where you're going. I mean, maybe right now you're selling 20 transactions, doing 20 transactions a year, and you keep saying to me, I want to be that millionaire real estate agent. I want to sell 40, whatever the number might be. What excuses are you holding? What's holding you back? And if you really take the time, to really write down some of the things that you're taught that you think are holding you back, you might figure out, well, you know what? They're probably not as insurmountable as you think. And if you can take that list of excuses and change them into something positive. And one of the examples he gives is, inexperience. Maybe, you're not experienced as a real estate agent, but you know what? It shouldn't matter. That you can turn that inexperience into a fresh new approach. We were talking a little bit about what's been going on over these last couple months with, COVID and how we've had to deal. Well, you know what? There's been seasoned agents that have never dealt with this either. So, even if you're a new agent day one and they're an agent that's been here for 20 years, no one has dealt with this. So you're just as qualified as that next person to be able to do it. So a lot of it's really taking the time to write down those excuses and change them into something positive. And I've been working on that myself. It's, it's a work in progress, but I think it's something fun. And it was great to be in this discussion group with my BNI group to really talk about it and come up with some ideas of what people are, what their excuses are. And they come down to the same things. I don't have enough money. I'm not experienced enough. I don't know enough people. I'm, whatever it may be. And it's really not that different for anyone else. And it's interesting, in my group, it's 6 women and 1 man. And a lot of the women were all feeling more, I guess, stressed about their workplace. And, from a female point of view, and he totally didn't see it. And he was able to provide such a nice perspective for all the women and to say that it really shouldn't be such a limiting belief. And I thought it was great. So, any questions so far, anyone? No.
No questions, no.
Okay. So let me go back. Let's see. Okay. So a couple of the key points that I thought he brought up that I thought were fun were success in business isn't about being right. It's about being committed. And I think that, again, like I said, a lot of Keller Williams really talks about this, and it's really about time on task over time. It's a lot about figuring out what's your why and really just putting in the time and the hours. I mean, the people that are successful are really just doing the work. And I think that's what you need to figure out. It says, the less you have of something critical, the more important it becomes and the more you use it wisely. And, he's obviously talking about toilet paper in his example, but I really think that you can think about it with anything. I mean, if you give yourself a budget for your business and really figure out how that, how to make it work within that, I think you can really make a big impact for going forward. It says here, how do you solve the problem of 3 sheets and get the job done? And this one I thought was kind of interesting because it goes back to when he was reading the book and when I was reading the initial part where it said, okay, so what would you do? You're in the bathroom and you have this issue. What would you do? Would you call someone? Would you ask for help? Would you, go figure it out yourself? Or do you use what's there in the room with you? And I think a lot of how you would address a problem or a situation tells you a lot about how you deal with whatever adversity comes your way. And I don't know, I would like to think that I would be really creative and inventive. I hope that I would be, and not call out for some help, but well, we'll see. The other thing that I thought was interesting, what they talked about was, so this happens to you once, okay? So you do get caught, with needing to make a decision and figuring this thing out. So what do? Do you live that, do you kind of continue to live that way? Now you figured out a solution. Do you make sure that you always have toilet paper there? Do you always now check to make sure that you're never not in there without a roll? And I think it kind of says a lot about how do you plan your business. I mean, you know, you may have a month where you have a lot of closings and you have money coming in. How do you plan for the next month when there's not something there? So how do you even it all out and make sure that you're prepared for all the different problems that arise? I hope it works. It's the same thing with toothpaste. He does it in, I think it's in Profit First, that he talks about the same thing with the toothpaste tube. That, you know, the initial toothpaste tube that you get, you know, you squirt some toothpaste on, it lands into the sink, you know, and you don't really care. So, but as you get to the end of that tube, you're really squeezing and trying to make it work. So if you were to think about it from the beginning, that you really should use judiciously in the beginning, it would last you a lot longer. And I think you need to not have that thought that abundance is always there. You need to be a little bit more frugal and figure it out how to make things work with less. So it says here too, if you exploit your strengths, you can create a company that feeds your vision and your soul, and a company that exhilarates and frees you. One of the biggest things that he talks about is that your company should be all about you. And it really should reflect who you are and who you want to be as a person. And we'll dig deeper into that in just a second. But I think that that's interesting that he talks very distinctly about how a company should be all about you. It shouldn't be about the customer, it should be about you. And his whole idea is that the customer will come to you. You'll find the customers that align with you, and it'll make your life much easier to work with, because you'll find people that know and like you because you're in synergy. And I've learned that over the years. I mean, you know, I'm no fabulous real estate agent, but I mean, I've learned that there's been people that, you know, from the get-go, you probably shouldn't have been in business with. You know, they're not the ones that want to take those price reductions. They're not listening to what you have to say, that you're kind of not meshing from the beginning. And I think if you could kind of figure that out early on, that this is your vision, you know, I think that's really a big help. One of the things that he also talks about is that, you know, it's just like we do in Keller Williams, that you could fire a customer and then really figure out who are your best customers, and really who are the ones that are giving you the referrals, who are the ones that are making your life easier, and get rid of the ones that are not. And as much as we wouldn't want to do that, but I think that that's what winds up having to happen. So, and then this last one, push beyond your limiting beliefs and turn them into enabling beliefs. We talked about that a little bit before. But it really does take a little bit of time to sit down and really figure them out. I mean, you know, nobody wants to expose themselves as far as, you know, being vulnerable, but I think it's really important to figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at. Let's see. Okay. So another part of the book, so as he continues onward, as he starts to give these examples of, you know, looking at your limiting beliefs and trying to change them into something positive, he talks about something called your wall, which to me, you know, again, is very similar. It's, you know, it's really, and I really do have a visual of it being a wall. Like you know, you want to get to that next level of production, or you want to move to that next level in your business. What is stopping you? And again, he's talking about coming up with your excuses, like what, you know, what's holding you back. And we spent a lot of time in our, you know, in my book club talking about what's holding you back. And you really do need to kind of sit down and talk about what those things are. And again, it's a visual with this. He said, okay, so if you come up with what's holding you back with your wall, now take those things down and try and make them enabling beliefs, and see a channel and see it as a vision toward where you're going, and try and take those beliefs and change them into positive. And maybe you need to just figure out, how am I going to achieve this? What am I going to do? And it helps you to be able to figure out how I'm going to get to where I'm going to go. Of course, everyone needs to look from the positive point of view versus the negative point of view. And I think that that's really what you want to look at from this. And he gives a lot of good examples in the book of people that, you know, looked at it one way, and, you know, maybe their business wasn't going properly one way, but it really, you know, once you stop and take a look at, okay, this isn't really what I'm thinking of. I need to look forward and see where I want to go and how can I get there. And what his example for himself was, he had a computer company, I guess, in the beginning, and he really didn't like it. And he really figured out that eventually what he really liked to do was help people do this kind of business. He didn't like, once the company got started, he had enough of it. He wanted to move onward. So he really enjoys this whole process of getting people ready to start a business, get it up and running, and then moves onward. And I think him owning that really helped him figure out what he wanted to do. And I think that's the same for us. So anyway, let's see, debunk. I'm looking to see if there's anything else that I want to say. Yeah, again, a lot of it comes down to me, understanding the book, The One Thing. What's your why? How are you going to get there? Like writing down your goals and things like that. And, really owning up to some of the things that are holding you back and trying to make them into positive ways to get you to where you have to go. Again, I talked a little bit before, I hope you guys can see that. I talked a little bit before about, what do you call it? What do you stand for? And the whole idea behind your business, that your business should be all about you. And he talks a lot about asking the question, why? And I think it really struck a lot for me to really stand up and say, what do you stand for? What do you want your business to be? What standards do you want? What do you expect from others? What do you expect from yourself? What do you feel like, what do you feel like your business needs to be to make you happy? And I never really thought about it that way. I really thought that, here to sell people real estate, but who do I really enjoy helping? I mean, and I'm going to use myself as an example, I'm not necessarily the person that really deals with investors. I mean, I really enjoy working with first-time home buyers and that whole hand-holding process. And I enjoy that piece of it. I enjoy helping the older people. I enjoy that whole process of helping them and their families and make an easy transition for someone that might be going to a nursing home or has passed away or something like that. And to me, the care and respect that I feel like I give those people and the first-time home buyers are way different than my mindset for an investor. I'm not sure that I'm capable of that. I mean, as much as I'd like to say I can be all things to everyone, I don't know that that's really my gig at the moment. And, I'm thinking that, my ideas of how I want my business to be maybe needs to be more focused. And maybe I do need to kind of say, this is who I want to target. This is who I want to align myself. And I mean, really keep asking why. Like, do I want to, service all these different people? Maybe I don't want to be in different areas. It's a lot. And, it's kind of interesting. Like, what are my values? Some of the other immutable laws of your company might be something relating to customer service. You might say that, I expect to, answer people's phone calls within an hour. I have, checklists and all this other kind of tools in place that will make me, get a 5-star rating from every single person. There's got to be things that you're going to put down and say, this is what I feel about my business. And it may not be the same as someone else's business, but this is what I feel is important. And, you may say, I'm never working, on a Sunday. I'm not doing an open house, or I may be, figuring out other ways to service my clients. And I think that you need to kind of really write down what you're doing and what you really feel are important for you. Again, it keeps coming down to why. And a lot of what he talks about is, what's your mission in life? I mean, truly, you have to feel like you're here for a higher mission or a higher purpose. It isn't just selling real estate. I mean, I think I've taken bold enough a number of times, and it's all about building a life by design. And to me, when he started talking about what are these immutable laws for your business and what do you see as the backbone of your company, that also said the same thing to me as bold. I mean, that you really are trying to earn money for the good it will do, come up with a way that you're living a lifestyle where you're incorporating all the things that you want to do in your life, between family, God, work, everything that you want. And I think it's all there for you. And I think it takes a little bit of time to think about it. And like I said, all these other books to me talk about it as well. And I just thought he had a really funny approach and interesting approach of what are those immutable laws and what are the things that you feel. Let's see. Oops, sorry, losing track. So it gets back to, again, that you're the jack of all trades, the master of none. And he really says you need to be focused in the beginning, that you really need to have your niche and to really go narrow and to really figure out who you want to work with, what you're going to do. You know, I think of it in terms of real estate, but if you think of it in terms of whatever it may be, I mean, I'm thinking of my girlfriend that's trying to sell this new product. So I don't even know what kind of product it is because she hasn't let us sign non-disclosure agreements, so she hasn't really discussed it. But apparently, I think it's some kind of a pet product. That's all I can think of. But she's even worried about, like, so who do I sell it to? Who is going to buy it? How do I distribute it? How do I get it moving forward? How do I get it manufactured? What do I price it at? And all that kind of stuff about your product. And, you know, Keller Williams is we sell real estate. We sell it for a very prestigious company. We're not the, Redfins of the world. We're not the, discount brokerage type place. So we're selling a product and we're providing a customer service level that we feel needs to get paid for based on what we actually do. So overall, the whole idea is to make your customer feel better, right? Our whole experience at Keller Williams is, selling your house for the most money within the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle. It's kind of the mantra of what we do, win-win and all those kind of important things. But I think it also still comes down to feeling that the customer needs to feel the best, and you're ultimately there to create that customer experience. So when he talked about this next point over here, where he talked about you can really only pick one, and it's quality, price, or convenience, and you need to be about one of those. I struggled a little bit with trying to figure out, well, selling real estate, how can you only pick one of those? Am I here for quality? Am I here for price, or am I here for convenience? So to me, if you were convenience, right, you'd be, selling something like McDonald's. They're there for convenience. I mean, you're not going there for specialty orders and things like that. You're going to go for a quick burger, in and out. If you're there for price, you're going to go for like a luxury brand. Are you, the Mercedes-Benz is kind of on price. As far as quality, you're going to go for something like, maybe going to Nordstrom's. It's all quality, it's customer service, things like that. So I thought it was interesting to kind of figure out, so what is your, belief for your business, and how can you make this work for, how can you make it work for real estate, and can you, in this environment, say, I expect to get this level of commission because I'm offering this level of service, and you're getting this level of convenience, and I kind of struggled with trying to figure out how would I pick one of those for who I want to be and who do I want my business to be. But I think that, to me, I think it comes to, I guess it all came down to quality for me. And, I want to give people a quality experience. And I think that ultimately it's not going to be about price. They're not going to get the cheapest commission. And it to a degree is going to be convenience because I'm going to take on all the responsibility and, be able to make sure that their transaction works very well. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to quality. And,
so those are immutable laws, right?
Yep, those are the immutable laws. So yeah, and I think, but again, I was struggling with, as a real estate agent, how do you? It's kind of hard to pick one of those to me. So
of course, I'm bringing my perspective to this, but I do feel like agents ought to have an immutable law about what they're willing to work for, because,
right.
Or I actually think it's possible to compromise so much that you wind up with an experience which eats away at you and makes it impossible to grow to the quality and caliber that you would otherwise be able to as a realtor.
I completely agree. I kept, as I've been sitting here doing these exercises with my networking group, and I really, I keep looking back that there are definitely people that you've taken their listings or you've taken them out as buyers and it's really drained you. And it
So are
really
you
hasn't.
are you the only realtor in your networking group, or
Yep.
is it?
Yep. Yeah. So it's my BNI group. And it's interesting because everyone has a different perspective. Like there's an interior, the people that are doing my book club, one's an interior decorator, one sells paper, one's an architect that now is on her own. She was in a big firm and now she's on her own. Another is a computer guy and is one other person. I can't remember who. Oh, graphic designer. So she's an independent worker, independent contractor. And it's just interesting listening to them talk about it all from their different points of view. And, so as a realtor, it's a totally different experience than, like the interior decorator, for example. She's helped me at my house and I kind of called her on the table and I said, I really don't think that you're price. I go, I really think that you're quality. I mean, I said, you came to my house and you didn't see the same vision as I did on all my, things that I wanted to refurbish. I said, I really see you as wanting higher end clients, that you really don't want the lower end. And I think you need to come to grips with that. And I don't know that she was very happy with me, but I think that you need to kind of really assess who your customer is and what are your personal beliefs? What are your immutable laws that you hold true, that if you hold them true, you're going to be able to share them with people that want to work with you. And I think it makes a nice big marriage back and forth. So it was, she was not happy with me that day when I told her that she and I would be aligned for interior decorating. But I don't know, like I said before, I really think that a lot of this discussion really dovetails nicely with figuring out your why. What is your one thing? In the Shift book, it's all about really understanding who your customer is and what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and really staying focused. And being able to just say, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk and, go for it and really just try and make it work, especially in this day and age.
Marianne, the thing we talked about a week or so ago too on another training that dovetails nicely with this is just having people really focus on what their value proposition is.
Right.
I can't be the same things you are, the same things as everybody else. So let me understand where I can add the most value and then just stay true to that.
Right. Right. And like I said, it took me back a little bit when he said, your company should be all about you. Your business should be all about you and what you want your business to be. And, when you first start out, I really think that you are trying to be something for everyone. And and I think you ultimately decide, I don't know that I can really deal with this personality or this kind of person. And, I think it works out so much better. You look back on all your experiences of the ones where you meshed with personality, that it becomes an easier transaction. And I think you have to be willing to say, you're kind of not in my value like we really don't align. And
well, and the other cool thing about that is that outside of value proposition is that you can also find your best clients doing stuff that you love to do. And I don't even mean work related. If you like to garden and you join the garden club, you're going to meet other people who like to garden. You're going to be in sync, right? If you like to bicycle and you join a bike club, you're going to find people that are in sync with you. And that is kind of being true to yourself.
Right. I agree with you. And like I was saying, I really think that you need to just keep asking why and keep figuring out who is my best customer and does it align with who I am as a person? And, I think that like one of the comments that he makes is keep asking the questions. What kind of cars does your best customer drive? Are they married? Are they single? Are they gay? Are they straight? Are they, renters? Are they buyers? Or know everything. What TV shows do they like? If you really can understand, like you said, Shannon, what they like, and it's going to be similar to what you like, it's going to be very easy to find them, and it's going to be very easy to meet them and be on the same page as they are.
And so much more fun to do business with them.
Well, exactly. Because I think it puts you on such a comfortable level to begin with that it makes it work. So I think so. Again, so that was one of the other things, was to truly really dig deep and understand your perfect customer. And I'm trying to go back and look at all the customers that I've helped and, try and say, how do I go forward and help this similar kind of people? And how do I make it a good experience for people going forward. So after you've kind of done all this, like this is the whole first half of the book, and it's, you know, it's what do you need to now come up with, how do I define my business? And he calls this his prosperity plan. And again, I take a look at it as kind of a 411, but even more so of your fundamental beliefs. And I guess the thing that he's talked about was it needs to be something that it's your life mission. It becomes all the things that you want to own as part of your company. And it has to make, he said it has to be meaningful enough to make you cry. And it has to be that kind of a passion level for you to say, this is what I want my company to be, and figure out how you can make it work so that it's a profitable business for you. And it doesn't have to be what Maria's business is or Shannon's, but it doesn't have to be what anyone else's business is. It has to be what your business is for you. And he talks about how this needs to be your far-reaching goal. And then you ultimately come down to ways to track all that in your daily metrics and quarterly metrics. And again, it's very similar to a 411 and understanding what you need to do to make yourself successful. The other thing, when he talked about what's the tagline for your business, like I kept thinking about, there's so many people at Keller Williams that have, you know, those 3 words underneath everyone's name, you know, and it could, you know, care, serve, give, or whatever the ones may be. And I thought, I think that's really an important exercise. And you see it on so many logos and things like that. And I think you really do need to take the time to figure that out for yourself and figure out what are those 3 words? What is your value statement? What kind of company do you want your real estate company to be? And I think that I've done a lot of soul searching over the last couple of weeks of figuring out, what do I want it to be? So how are you, Carrie? So, and again, it comes down, like we talked about before, what is your area of innovation, and, you know, your price, your product, your quality, how do you make it all work? All right, then I have one more slide and then we can chit chat. I'd like to hear someone's information. So again, he said, the whole idea is that you come up with a game plan, again, like your 411 and your big why, and how do you get there? Like, you really need to constantly be focused on where you're going and changing direction to keep you, getting there. You want to have a nice goal set, because if you don't have a goal, you're just going to end up somewhere and not get to where you want to go. You need to figure out what are your daily metrics, come up with a quarterly plan and really just sit and decide what you want to do for each quarter, and, you'll continue along to where you need to go. Talked about needing accountability partners, which to me is coaching and just, having people around you that you can vent and discuss things with. And the second one that he talked about was this act as if, and then he said internally. So if you want to be a millionaire real estate agent, think about it and act about it internally. He doesn't want you to be, how do I want to say it? And for lack of a better word, I'm going to say the salesperson. He wants you to believe it in yourself and really feel like, the thought behind the thought really gets you to where you have to go. If you believe that you're a millionaire real estate agent, and if you deeply feel it inside, you'll be able to achieve that. If your thought, your external thought and your internal thoughts are not congruent, then you're not going to get to where you have to go. So you really need to make sure that you're feeling this internally and externally. And I thought it was interesting too that he talked about you need to have a life mission. And, like I said, I listened to Vanessa speak a couple of weeks ago about her whole idea about closing for a cause and how ingrained that is into her business model. And I think that that's something that was really important for me to try and figure out, what is my mission? It's not just selling real estate. What is my mission, and how am I getting to where I have to go? Ultimately, from a family point of view, personal point of view, and things like that. So anyway, the one other thing that I wanted to talk about was just, and a lot of it was just saying no, and really understanding, saying no to certain clients and saying no to certain things that are not in line with your beliefs really should continue to make you successful, and will allow you not to be off track. So, and to me, it was like non-realistic sellers, not motivated buyers, maybe markets you don't really serve, or whatever just isn't in line with your immutable laws. So, and that's that. So, any questions for anyone? Any thoughts?
Lots of thoughts on my end, and I apologize, my phone might ring in 1 minute and I have to take it when it does. But
That's okay.
for me, the thing that really stuck with me was make a list of your excuses. My brain started working on that in my own role as team leader. And what really jumped out at me is A, there's not that many, and B, if you take each one of them as a solvable thing, they're not so big, right? It's just something that you need to make a solution for.
Right. Right.
I have to jump. I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna take this. Sorry,
Okay.
guys.
It's okay. No, I think the biggest thing for me was really just coming up with, you know, like I said, it was a tongue-in-cheek kind of book where the way he talked about a bunch of different things. And I think one of the things I've learned on this whole, I've been listening to that shift in the morning, that from 8 to 8:20 every morning. And a lot of it is just get up and do it. I mean, I think so many of us have had, you know, put roadblocks up and put a wall up in front of us, and just get out there and do the things that you need to do. And with what's going on lately with, you know, open houses, virtual open houses, and trying to market things and trying to figure out this whole shift in the market and the changes, you just have to get out there and try something. And, you know, I put a quote behind me where it said, don't let, you know, the whole thing about perfection, don't let perfection get in the way of just doing something. And I think that that's kind of important for where we are at the moment. And I think this was a fun read to just kind of get you thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like there's lots of parallels to our business, certainly. There's a, and you know, a lot of the things that you're saying, they have sort of very similar, like don't let good be the enemy of great, you know. So when you're on your journey, you kind of come into this business, you know, because none of us was born a realtor. So when we get into it day one,
right,
we have the roadblocks built in already, and it's about systemically removing them.
Right.
First, like you're saying, from your mindset. Like if you're believing that you would like to be, a lot of people don't want to be a millionaire real estate agent, by the way, and that's fine. But
right.
if you think about it and start by reading the red book and decide you want to be a millionaire real estate agent, the first thing you have to do is start thinking about the behaviors that you're going to change that get in the way of you becoming that. And then once you do that, I think about, like, and Shannon, who's just jumped off the call, of course, is a perfect example of that, because she came into this, she was a flipper when she started with us. That's all she wanted to do was flip. And then because the market changed, she had to start to strip down the roadblocks that stood between her and becoming a millionaire real estate agent.
Right.
And she's a perfect example of living that.
Well, and I think it's, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I was at Keller Williams for a couple of years before I went to Family Reunion. And when you go to Family Reunion, you really, you know, you watch these people up on stage and they talk about there's so many of them that come from, that have like been at this level, have lost everything and, you know, built themselves back up, and just the internal drive that they have and just passion for what they do. To me, that was the same as what he had said. Like, what you say inside has to match what you're thinking outside. I mean, if it's one thing to read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent and say, yes, I'd like to be that. But if you're not really putting pen to paper and saying, this is what I have to do, and making it that crazy goal and, you know, working toward it, you're not going to get there. And I think that to me is important. And I saw a lot of those parallels in this book, that it's really like he says, excuse my language, shit or get off the pot. I mean, it's truly, you know, it's one thing to talk about it, but really just get out there and do it.
You're right. Yeah.
So, I think so. So the one last thing that's at the end of the book, like I said, the second half of the book really talks a lot about investing and getting investors for your business, which I didn't feel was as relevant for, a real estate agent. But the last little section of the book I thought was interesting, and it was over here. And it related a little bit to discussing this with your kids. And I have kids that are college age and just out of college. And it was talking to kind of talking to their level and saying, you have the perfect opportunity to give this a try and really feel like if you have the passion for trying something as entrepreneurial, to just do it. And the example he gave was throw a party. And I thought about it, and he said, think about it. If you throw a party with as little resources as possible and see how many people you can get there, make it a success, see how you interact at the party. How do you talk to people, interact with people? How do you, at the end of the party, have everyone giving you a big thumbs up and saying it was a fabulous party? And I thought that's a little bit about how you want your business to be. Like, it tells you a lot about how you solve a problem and see this as a big challenge. And I thought I thought it was an interesting analogy of your own business and throwing a party, and how do you see yourself getting through, doing that. And I thought that was something interesting to tell your kids too. So, but yeah. Sure. So it was fun. So like I said, the other books are interesting too. The Pumpkin Plan is his other book, and it's all about, being the biggest, best pumpkin so that they pick you, kind of, how do you do that? And then Profit First, which, given my background in accounting, seemed very appropriate for me. It was all about, paying yourself first and really analyzing your business from from a financial point of view and taking a hard lesson in that. And, like I said, he's just very humorous. It's an easy read. I had it on my audio and I just listened to it as I was walking around. So kind of a fun one. So, but any questions, anyone? Jenny, any questions?
No, thank you for sharing. I think it was very refreshing.
It is. It's funny. If you get a chance to just, it's a book that you can easily skim through. It's just kind of funny. And a lot of it too, I think he gives great examples of, people that he considers toilet paper entrepreneurs and what they've gone through. And it gives you kind of a nice perspective of, how to change your perspective on things and how to look at things from a different angle, like to go from a limiting belief to an enabling belief. So, okay. Well, thank you for all for listening.
Marianne, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
This has been terrific.
Awesome.
I
Thanks,
think you
Marianne.
set the bar, a new bar on book club presentations, because that was really awesome.
So, well, thanks. It's a lot of fun. And, I think the Shift Book Club that I guess it was today is at the same time I guess they're starting Grit with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And I think they're doing Grit, which that would be a good one.
Very cool.
So I can't read all the crazy novels. I have to start reading. I do have to read this. I do read business books and, entertainment books.
Well, it makes it so easy on Audible too. I like to, when you're writing places, you can catch a quick chapter, which is great.
Well, exactly. Like I do it when I take a walk and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marianne. This has been great, just to kind of refocus on our mission in the business and what we have. And especially, you need to be resourceful when times like this and everything changes on a dime. Being resourceful, you can come out on top. And,
well,
I like the idea too about your excuses. If, whether it's one or two or whatever you can pull apart, one little thing can make a big difference to your bottom line.
Well, exactly. I've been ruthless these last couple months. I have been going line by line on my credit cards and canceling stuff and changing things, and my family's annoyed to death. But between personal stuff and work stuff, I've cut out a lot of things. It really is important to really see what you're spending money on.
And when you talked about investors and skipping over it, I was thinking that the investors in our business are really our raving fans.
Right.
Those, I think cultivating raving fans can help push our business a little further.
Right.
And if you do, exactly, in the limiting beliefs, if you do it, you should be successful. Like, like the Field of Dreams, you build it, they'll come.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, like I said, it really was interesting that I guess the biggest overlying thing was your business should be all about you. And I thought, to me, that was the one that really took me a little while to digest, that it should be all about how you want your business. And to your point, the Field of Dreams, if you build your business the way you are, people that align with you will come and work with you.
And it is. It's great working with like-minded people. I did take a pass on somebody last week thinking, they're like out there, they're, it was a rental thing, but they're like, why should we pay commission? They should pay, it's like, and I'm thinking, you're starting off this way. Yeah, no, we're not a match. As much as I would have loved his $2,000 or whatever, I'm thinking I'll pass on this one and I'll use my energy and efforts for some good people. And I found great people, beyond that and got it done. So
I agree.
yeah, I agree. So,
Good.
well, thank you for sharing. This is wonderful.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Enjoy.
I miss you. Look forward to seeing you soon.
So, all right. Well, enjoy. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and thanks for your comments. And, make sure you never have just 3 sheets.
Or know how to
as a plumber's daughter, I would completely agree with that. My father would have loved this book with all the funny toilet things I have with all the toilet references. It was very funny.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.